When you stare up into the night sky and see so many stars of all shapes and sizes, do you ever stop to wonder? What are they made of? And how do they work? Maybe they're all made like our planet Earth. Or are they full of something else? In today's time, every school teaches you what planets and stars are, how they are different, and what their composition is. But long before we knew that stars are big balls of hydrogen and helium combusting at incredibly high temperatures, the scientific wisdom of the time held that there are no significant elemental differences between the Sun and the Earth. In the first episode of Stories of Past Astronomers, we shall investigate the life of Dr. Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin, the astronomer behind the discovery of the composition of stars and their classification. Cecilia Helena Payne was born on May 10, 1900, into an upper-class family in the market town of Wendover, England, UK. Her father was the multifaceted Edward John Payne, a superb musician, Oxford University Fellow, author of significant histories, and later a barrister and judge. When Cecilia was 4 years old, he drowned in a canal. However, he instilled in his daughter a passion for music by playing scales to her from the age of 2, allowing her to acquire the perfect pitch. Cecilia recalls him brightening their home with music and laughter. Her mother was Emma Leonora Helena Nepertz, a talented artist from a well-educated German family. Cecilia's mother was a strong woman who raised her 3 children all by herself. All were very young when her husband died. Cecilia was the eldest. At age 8, Cecilia decided to become a scientist. This happened after she recognized a plant she had previously only known from her mother's description of it, the bee orchid. For the first time, I knew the leaping of the heart, the sudden enlightenment, that they were to become my passion. These moments are rare, and they come without warning, on days to be marked with a white stone. An autobiography and other recollections published in 1984. Her journey into astronomy began when she was 19, after entering the University of Cambridge in 1919. A lecture by astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington on his expedition to the island of Principe confirmed Einstein's theory of general relativity. She could not sleep for 3 nights after attending the lecture. She almost drove herself to a nervous breakdown, thinking excitedly about its meaning, ramifications, and how it had changed her perception of the world. She elected to do major in physics and began attending her astronomy classes. She avidly read astronomy publications and approached Eddington after making some astronomical observations, who was delighted to give her some research work to do on an informal basis. This prompted her to write an article on the proper motion of stars, which was later published by the Royal Astronomical Society. She learned not to be ashamed of acknowledging her lack of understanding in something in its entirety. She spent many days and nights working on astronomy projects when she really ought to have been studying physics. She left Cambridge with a second-class honours degree rather than a first. The degree was not awarded officially. It was only in 1947 that the University of Cambridge began addressing degrees to women. After learning that the only career option open to her in her own country was teaching in a girls' school, she decided to go to America to study for a doctorate and become an astronomer. Soon after she came to America, Payne began her work at the Harvard Observatory, aiming to calculate the abundance of elements in stars. Shapley made Harvard's enormous library of spectra available to her. After 2 years of unremitting effort, Payne built a temperature scale for stars versus their absorption intensities, allowing her to calculate the abundances of chemical elements. She was amazed when she discovered, regardless of spectral type, all stars had similar compositions. The abundance of hydrogen and helium in all the stars were enormous, much greater than all the other elements combined. Her thesis concluded that hydrogen was the overwhelming constituent of stars, making it the most abundant element known in the universe. Things turned out for the worse when it was time for the thesis dissertation. The astronomer Henry Norris Russell firmly believed in the theories proposed by the physicist Henry Rowland, and this existing theory was espoused by prominent astronomers, including Arthur Eddington, that stars are made up of essentially the same elements as Earth. Since Russell's word was law, she followed his advice. Her thesis showed the Sun was almost entirely hydrogen and helium, but she spent her time explaining why this could not be the right rather than exploring the implications. In 1914, he wrote in an academic article, "The agreement of the solar and terrestrial lists is such as to confirm very strongly Rowland's opinion that if the Earth's crust were raised to the temperature of Sun's atmosphere, it would give a very similar absorption spectrum. The spectra of the Sun and the other stars were very similar. So it appeared that the relative abundance of elements in the universe was like that in Earth's crust." In response to this criticism, and because she was anxious to get her results published, Payne downplayed her finding as a possible error and consequently described her results as spurious, dissuading her from concluding that the composition of the Sun was predominantly hydrogen. Russell ultimately realized that Dr. Cecilia was right all along when he derived the same results by different means. In 1929, 4 years after Dr. Cecilia's original findings, he published his findings in a paper that briefly acknowledged Payne's earlier work and discovery, including the mention that the most important previous determination of the abundance of the elements by astrophysical means is that by Miss Payne. This never stopped Dr. Payne from practicing her love for science. After her doctorate, Payne went on to study stars of high luminosity to understand the structure of the Milky Way galaxy. Then, they went on to study all the stars brighter than the 10th magnitude. She then researched variable stars, making over 1.25 million observations with her assistants. This work was later extended to the Magellanic Clouds, adding over 2 million observations of variable stars. Payne's career marked a turning point at Howard College Observatory. Under the direction of Harlow Shapley and Dr. E.J. Sheridan, the observatory had already offered more opportunities in astronomy to women compared to other institutions. And notable achievements had been made earlier in the century by Williamina Fleming, Antonia Maury, Annie Jump Cannon, and Henrietta Swan Leavitt. However, with Payne's PhD, women entered the mainstream. She met the Russian scientist Sergei Gaposchkin in Germany in 1933. In 1934, they got married and moved to Lexington, Massachusetts. They initially communicated solely in German because it was the only language in which they were both adept. Following their marriage, they did most of their studies together. They gave birth to 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Catherine and Peter went on to become astronomers, whereas Edward went on to become a neurosurgeon. Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin, 79, died of lung cancer in her sleep on December 7, 1979, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Catherine, her daughter, stated that cigarettes were her mother's only vice. Cecilia donated her corpse to research and was buried in the Tufts Medical School Cemetery in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. She was survived by her spouse and children. In Madame Cecilia's own words, the reward of the young scientist is the emotional thrill of being the first person in the history of the world to see something or understand something. And nothing can compare with that experience. The reward of an old scientist is the sense of having seen a vague sketch grow into a masterly landscape. It was the lifelong efforts of Madame Cecilia which paved the pathway not only for science but also for women of astronomy all across the globe. Madame Cecilia led a truly inspirational life. In a time when women weren't expected to achieve anything, she made discoveries that transformed astronomy itself. She is truly a testament to the fact that hard work and perseverance can lead to great achievements.